Thank you, Representative Blazewski and the other sponsors of that bill. DEM also worries about, works on climate change every single day. I think it's the most important issue in front of us, and this legislation will help us do more to combat climate change. So I'm here to endorse the goals of the legislation and to make some recommendations that I think will strengthen the bill. And let me just run through those quickly. Out of respect for everyone, I don't want to say too much more about climate change, but I can't endorse enough the urgency and the fact that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and recent scientific reports have only indicated that we need to do more faster to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in Rhode Island, in the nation, and around the globe. So quickly to run through the issue, and we've met with the bill sponsor, and would very much like to work with the sponsor in this committee on some changes. First, in order for the state agencies to accomplish these targets, we need to have authority to act. So we would like to see the legislation amended to be clear that state agencies have the authority to promulgate rules and regulations to achieve the targets under the bill. We think that's missing. Secondly, we think the language on resiliency should be strengthened. Since the 2014 law, we've done a lot of work. We have, the governor requested that we create a chief resiliency officer and make a statewide resiliency plan so that we can mitigate, adapt, and make the state more resilient to climate change. So we think the language should be strengthened to require state agencies to implement actions. Right now, the word is recommend, that would improve the resiliency of infrastructure and natural systems. We like the expansion of the Executive Climate Change Council to add some additional players. We would like to recommend that you add the RIPTA CEO, because reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector is a very big challenge. It's 40% of our emissions. It's the biggest share of the emissions. And we would also recommend that you add the director of the Public Utilities Commission, because the work that we need to do to decarbonize our electric sector and to modernize our grid is critical and underline the headway that we'll make on greenhouse gas emissions reductions. Lastly, and we have a concern about the citizen suit provision, and that is something we wanted to work more with the sponsor and the committee members and the advocates. Right now, the citizen suit provision, so we get the goal. You want to have enforceable standards. You want to hold government accountable, and you want to make sure that who's ever in my seat or in the other cabinet seats is taking action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to meet these targets. The targets under the bill are 2035 and 2050, and the citizen suit provision talks about any person having standing to sue. And I think it's not workable the way it is, so we have some suggestions from other citizen suit provisions from other statutes. It's so broad, it confers standing without any boundaries on it to sue the government for failure to achieve standards that are actually 15 years out. So I think that the goals are good about making sure it's enforceable and that you can hold government accountable, that we'd like to work further on looking at some of the citizen suit provisions in other statutes or other targets or hooks that would ensure enforceability. So really, what I want to do is strongly endorse this bill. I think it could be better than it is, and I think there's some issues that we'd like to work further to make sure that they're workable. But we appreciate it and the new targets, and we endorse those.